sorry for the slightly late start. We've got a lot of attendees participating today, and we've still got probably 50 or more so coming into the conference bridge. Great, lots of feedback from everybody. Thank you so much, everyone. That's wonderful. All right, I'm Ken Shaw. I'm the CEO of SOS Online Backup. I'm here joined today by Lynn Weber, one of our senior partner specialists. And today's webinar is about how you as a potential partner of SOS can get into the online backup business. The audience for these webinars is usually VARs, MSPs, IT service providers who specialize in bringing miscellaneous products and services solutions to their customer bases and are considering bringing online backup to market. So what we're going to cover today is a brief overview of who SOS Online Backup is. We'll then turn and look at the traditional backup and disaster recovery industry, particularly as it pertains to VARs and MSPs and resellers, looking at tape backup as the predominant technology incumbent in that space. We'll then turn to look at online backup and the benefits it poses as a technology solution as compared to more traditionally centralized architected backup solutions, and then turn that into the business question. We'll first look at the technology, but then we'll look at the business opportunity. So how can you as an MSP or a VAR or a computer repair store or a software company or an ISP add online backup into your products and services mix to drive revenue for your business? We'll be giving away a Kindle at the end of today's webinar, everybody. And to get the instructions to participate in that raffle, you've got to stick around to the end of the webinar, I'm sorry, at which point we'll give you the details for how to participate in that raffle. Again, Kindle will announce the details at the end of the webinar. One last housekeeping item is that we try and make these sessions as dynamic and interactive as possible. So we've got lots of comments here from Roger Hunt and Daniel Brown and Tom and Chris Muller, Mark Jones, just to pick out a few names on the audio. What we'd really love to encourage is for you to then participate throughout the webinar by asking questions as we go along. And we'll both, there's a Q&A section at the end of the webinar, which will go for about 20 minutes. But what we also try and do is to answer questions throughout the webinar as they relate to the content being discussed. So feel free to ask any old question at any time. If it's directly related to the content, we'll answer it in conjunction with the content. If it's a more general question, we'll handle it at the end of the webinar. But don't worry, your questions will not be ignored. They'll all be addressed. All right, so let's dive in. So firstly, just a brief overview of who SOS is. As a company, we've been around since 2001. We were formed to go after the online backup market. That's our exclusive focus. We don't, we don't worry about any other technologies as most of our competitors do. We've always focused on being the best of breed technology platform in the market. So we've been PC Magazine Editor's Choice Award winner for many years running, and we win many industry accolades. You can Google us and you can see a lot in the press about the fact that we keep our technology platform at the very cutting edge of the online backup market, which is one way we differentiate ourselves. The next point is probably more relevant to everybody on the line, which is that what we focus on doing is providing an online backup platform. What I mean by that is that we specialize in providing online backup services to VARs and MSPs. And we're not exactly the only game in town focusing on that. I'll just go back a slide. But we certainly are the market leader in that space. We've got more than 1,000 partners worldwide, 4 major global locations, 10 data centers around the world, more than 200 employees, nearly 10 million PCs on our grid, and more than 3 million customer accounts. So we're quite large. We've become quite successful at getting partners like yourselves into the online backup market and making you successful. We are only successful if you succeed in selling and driving revenue from online backup. We've actually grown 300% in the last year, which is really a point about our existing partners rather than a point about us. The fact that we've grown so much, I think, is testimony to the fact that we've really helped a lot of people get into this business successfully, and we'd like to try and repeat that success with all of you here today. In terms of the company history, we have been around a long time, which I think is important. There's a lot of startups in this space, but we are very, we're a large and stable and rapidly growing company. We've proven our model time and time again, and just on the right-hand side, some of the key pillars of our business that we've built I've already touched on, but being the #1 technology platform, and then secondly, being the leader of really the reseller channel for online backup. So our claim to fame is that we dominate the reseller channel for online backup VARs and providers. We've got a lot of different partner programs, which we'll talk about today, and our goal is to really get, there's 100 people at today's webinar, to get all of you to join up and start selling online backup either as a standalone product or as a service that you can bundle in with other technologies that you're selling. In terms of where we fit in the marketplace, we generally focus on the SMB market. Either we sell to the SMB market directly, we've got a small business there, but our main focus, as I said, is through resellers. In terms of some other brands in the market, this slide just lays out brands that you might be familiar with. Carbonite and Mozy, obviously strong in the consumer space, Iron Mountain and Semantic in the enterprise space. We've got both consumer customers and consumer partner solutions as well as enterprise partner solutions. But our real wheelhouse and where we find the greatest and strongest reception among our partners is partners who sell through to the small business market. It's by far the fastest growing sector of the online market today. I beg your pardon, the online backup market today. And then this slide just provides a high-level summary of what it is we're about here at SOS. We, as depicted by our logo on the left-hand side of this slide, we take all of our technology and expertise. We then take that and we run that through and filter that through your entire go-to-market model, whatever that is, whether you're a hardware company or a software company or an MSP that sells some hardware and some software, or you're an ISP. We've got various solutions where we can productize an online backup offering for you and your company in a way that matches your brand and your go-to-market sales strategy. We then work with you to create custom offerings for your customers with the end goal of doing four things. We want to drive incremental revenue for your business that's high margin, that's a recurring revenue base in the form of a managed service for your customers. That's what today's webinar is about. And then this slide just gives you, a 10,000-foot overview of the type of online backup business in a box we're talking about. And we'll see more of this later, but on the screen is just an example of some various white-labeled online backup solutions we've delivered to the market in recent months. And we'll see more of that branding later in the presentation. So let's turn to the technology that has dominated the backup and DR space for the last 2 decades. Generally, when we approach the market and when we work with our partners to build their business plan for approaching the market, we slice it into these 3 categories. Consumer, usually being single or 2-seat deployments. SMB, which we characterize as being about 5 seats up to 500, and then the enterprise space above 500 seats. Looking at those 3 sectors, you've actually had different approaches to backup being the de facto standard in each one. In the consumer space, there's really been no de facto standard. In fact, most market research shows that less than 10% of consumers have backup with any sort of regularity. Where they did, it was usually an on-site backup solution, maybe architected around a USB external hard disk drive or a USB flash key. Fairly low fidelity backup solutions and hardly ever off-site. In the small business market, off-site backup was far more common, but usually, nearly always, architected around a rotating tape-based backup regime where tapes are being rotated off-site at different periodicities. This approach is what takes this tripartite approach to architecture of hardware, software, and labor. So the hardware being usually tape arrays and the hardware that they run on, software being a tape-based backup solution like Backup Exec or perhaps Dance Retrospect, and then labor. The labor component was the soft costs and often the unidentified costs associated with actually running that tape-based backup solution. And that's just not the time and labor involved in setting it up, but the time and labor involved in running it. So every day somebody has to take that tape off site. Every week they should be verifying that those tapes are in fact recoverable, which is a major source of pain with tapes. And then when it actually comes to recoveries could often be multi-day affairs when you had a complete system meltdown and were recovering from multiple tapes. So the labor component is actually an extremely important component of the cost associated with tape-based backup solutions, which actually goes away when you move to the cloud, and we'll see that in a minute. And then in enterprise, a similar approach to what was incumbent in the SMB space and still, frankly, is very common in the enterprise space. But we also then add in an additional factor of the services cost associated with the deployment. So oftentimes, when you're talking about enterprise-level DR regimes, yes, you've still got the hardware, software, and labor component to run it, but you've also then got a pretty hefty labor component usually associated with the initial deployment. So in a $200,000 disaster recovery deployment by IBM, it wouldn't be uncommon for $50,000 to go to GBS to actually do the implementation. So that's a component to the way we look at costing an enterprise backup solution based on tape. All the same logic applies to disk-based backup regimes as well, to slightly different cost economics, but just from an architectural standpoint, disk and tape are synonymous here. Now let's contrast that to the cloud. When we're talking about online backup and we talk about launching John Ebby's online backup service or Phil Downs, just to pick on a couple of attendees, we then take all of those same components, the software, hardware, the services, and the support, wrap it all up into a software as a service solution and deliver it over the wire with pure software on the client end. So dramatically simpler deployment, dramatically simpler management, dramatically lower cost of ownership, and fundamentally better service and a far higher level of data protection delivered. And that's borne out in the statistics associated with the tape backup market. Just looking at the economics of tape backup, over the last 24 months, tape backup sales have shrunk from $2.3 billion down to $1.5 billion, and are projected to collapse into sub 500 million within the next 2 years. So we're seeing a pretty dramatic fall off in the sale of tape-based backup solutions, and you're actually seeing a similar decline in disk-based backup. I don't have a slide specifically on disk, but the statistics, whilst not as dramatic on disk, are still pretty aggressive. We flip that and we look at the growth in cloud-based backup solutions. You've got a recent survey by CTO Edge magazine saying that more than 70% of CTOs surveyed in North America are intending on moving their backup to the cloud. 60% are intending on phasing out tape. So you've got a pretty profound set of numbers which indicate an enormous groundswell for online backup, and an enormous opportunity that's pending in the market for online backup. And really, the question that we then pose to everybody on the line here today is actually stems from a quote from one of our partners, which is, if we don't sell our customers a cloud-based backup solution, someone else will, so why not us? And I think that's a fantastic question, and really one that I pose to everyone here today, that if you're not going to sell an online backup solution, what's a challenge really? If you aren't going to sell online backup to your customers, I assure you that someone else is going to. So why shouldn't that be you? And we say it should be. So just to put some actual numbers behind those assertions that I've just been making, this slide does a one-up comparison on a standard tape backup solution for a small business. There's a real-life customer reference. I think they had 8 or 9 employees and about 100 gigabytes of data that was being backed up. Pretty typical sort of small business environment with a server and a few workstations. What this shows, if you look at the tape backup deployment, this does not cost the labor component I referred to earlier. And our own market research shows that the labor component can be as much as twice as the hardware component. What this slide just looks at is the hard costs. And it shows a total 5-year cost of $9,130 with a total first-year cost, very capital-intensive outlay, of $6,146. Contrast that to the cost of an online backup solution. First-year cost $1,000, so only 16% of the cost of the tape backup solution. The 5-year cost, still roughly half the total 5-year cost of the tape-based backup solution. Okay, great. Roger will answer your question in just 1 second. So I want to draw everybody's attention to 2 key things here. Firstly, the cost to your client, right? Because that's really this scenario. Everybody on the line is selling backup and DR through to your clients. So their first-year cost with a tape backup solution or sub-in disk, roughly 5 or 6 times as much as the first-year cost as the online backup solution. The 5-year cost, roughly double. But when we then look at the margin to you as a partner, your margin on the tape-based backup solution is a one-off margin, usually low single digits, so 5 or 6 points is pretty common on that type of hardware, in which case, using that as the basis of the equation, your margin for that sale on that tape backup is only $500 at once off. Compare that to your margin on online backup, which is $500 a year every year. So over the 5 years, the margin to your business is $2,500 for online backup. And at the same time, you've just delivered a cost saving to your client.